Hi, my name is Dr. Frederick Edward Fabella, and I will be discussing groupthink. Okay, so consider this idea. People who appear to be good and decent individuals are everywhere. No? You can see them perhaps in the street, where you work, when you go to school, in public places, when you meet them, when you see them, they appear to be good and decent. Now, let me ask you this question, okay? True or false? All right. When good people join together, the more good they will do. Is that true or false? Okay, some of you might say true. And if you answered true, let me challenge that. Okay? I will ask you another question. Is it possible for good and decent individuals to come together and do something unethical, immoral, or even evil? Now, to answer that question, let's try to consider what Irving Janis said. It happens when members of a group consider loyalty as the highest form of morality. And this gave rise to Irving Janis' idea of groupthink. So there are groups that engage in groupthink. Not all groups do, but if we want to find out how an how a group engages in groupthink, let's consider the signs. So what are these signs? So let's consider the first sign, illusions of unanimity. Now I will be using the graphics, the characters that I showed you before as an example to demonstrate these signs one by one. Okay, so consider a group of people, and what if they come up with a plan, and one of them says, "This is our plan. Are we all agreed?" And one will say, "Sure." Another one will say, "Yeah." Still another one will say, "Sounds good." Now, another member of the group will think, "No one is disagreeing. Might as well agree to." Okay. Now, look at what I have demonstrated. Because there is the perception that everyone is agreeing to the plan, there's this illusion of unanimity when in fact maybe some of them have doubts, but they're just not voicing them out. And that leads to groupthink. All right, so this is one sign. Okay, let's consider another sign. This is called mind guards. So again, I will demonstrate using an example. Okay, consider another group, and then one says, "For our Valentine fundraising, we will sell chocolates." And then, "Let's do it," one says. Another one says, "Great idea." Still another individual in the group says, "We will raise a lot of funds." But then there's this guy who knows that there is another group that will sell chocolates also. But instead of raising this information with the group, he just agrees to the group's plan as well. So, what happened? There's information that could threaten the plan, but instead of raising this information, this individual became a mind guard and he did not want to disrupt the unanimity of the group. Okay, so that is one sign of groupthink. Okay, so let's now consider self censorship. Okay, which is another sign of groupthink. I will demonstrate this using another example. Okay, again, there is a group, and then one of them says, because they are students and there's an exam, the school test is difficult. Let's make cheat sheets. So they will write the possible answers on pieces of paper. They will bring them in class during the test so they can look at the answers. All right. So people in the group say, "Yeah, you're right. I don't want to fail." So, okay, that's way easier, sure. But there's a member of the group who thinks, "Why don't we just have a group study session?" But they might say it's a stupid idea. So instead of raising this apparently better idea, this guy just says, "Okay." So that is self censorship. The member censored his idea in favor of group. unanimity. Okay, so that's another sign of groupthink. Let's now consider another sign: collective rationalization. So, how does this happen? Let's demonstrate this with an example again. Let's say one of them says, my dad is out of town. We can use his car and go on a secret trip. Who knows how to drive? And then one of them says, I can drive. But there is one member of the group who has reservations. He asks, is that safe? No one of us has a driver's license because they're all students. Yeah, you get scared too easily. It will be all right. And another person says, yep, don't ruin our fun. So there is a rationalization for the plan of the group. Even though there might be some problems encountered, they just rationalize it. Okay, so that's another sign of groupthink. Let's consider another sign: illusion of invulnerability. I'll demonstrate it with an example again. So we have another group, and one of them says, let's go swimming after we get drunk. And then one of them says, cool, that would be fun. But there is a member of the group who has doubts about the safety of the plan. Isn't that dangerous? We might drown, that person says. But they react saying, nah, we'll be okay. Yeah, no one is going to drown. So there is this belief that no harm or danger can come to them because of the plan. So there's this illusion of invulnerability. Okay, so let's go now to another sign. This sign is called stereotyping. So imagine if there is a school and there is a student body election. They're coming up with a student council, and this group is a political party running for the student body positions. And one of them says, we've got to beat that other political party. And then one of them says, yeah, they're not smart. Still another says they're not nice people. Another one says their beliefs and values are wrong and they are no good. So try to analyze this. When when there is a group and there's another group, your group uh, attempts to look at yourselves as superior to the other group, and the other group's always inferior to you. Okay, so that is stereotyping. Okay, so that's another sign of groupthink. Let's consider unquestioned beliefs, which is another sign. So again, an example: there's this guy who hates a person who is outside their group, and he says, "Let's bully him with dummy accounts on the web." So they want to do cyberbullying, and then one of them agrees, "Sure, that would be fun." Okay, but one of them thinks that isn't that a cruel thing to do? So they react to him. Isn't wrong when the guy deserves it? Yeah, it's the right thing to do. So despite the fact that what they're going to do is outright harmful or wrong, their beliefs become the moral standard of what they are going to do, not necessarily whether or not the act is wrong in itself. Okay, so that's unquestioned beliefs. All right. So that's a sign of groupthink. Let's consider another sign: direct pressure on dissenters. So let's consider this example. So you have a group again, and then this group is actually a gang, and there's a rival gang. So this one guy says, let's beat up that other gang. And one member says, yeah, we need to get even. But there's one who says, he dissents and says, hang on, guys, are we really going to hurt them? And then one of them reacts to this guy who dissents. Why are you questioning the plan? Aren't we all in this together? Yeah, and then another one says, where is your loyalty? Join or leave. So there is a pressure exerted on members who dissent. Okay, so that is another sign of groupthink. So let's try to look at all the signs together. So these are 8 signs. You have illusions of unanimity, unquestioned beliefs, rationalizing, stereotyping, self censorship, mind guards, illusions of invulnerability, and direct pressure. So, taken together, all these are signs of groupthink. So, a group is engaging in groupthink when they have all these signs. Okay, so what are the dangers of groupthink? It might lead to uh, physical violence between groups. Okay, it can also lead to a group harming one person because of groupthink. It can also lead to a group thinking of doing a criminal act, just like rape. Okay, so these are the dangers of groupthink. Now, consider groupthink on a corporate level. Does it happen? Yes. We will consider the example of Enron. So, what is Enron? It was a large energy company in the United States, and there was an individual who found out that the company was engaging in questionable accounting practices. When he wanted to raise this because there might be problems later on, he was silenced. But in the end, Enron had legal problems, their stock price went down, and it eventually filed for bankruptcy. Okay, so groupthink led to the downfall of Enron. Okay, groupthink on a scientific level. So if you remember the time when there were still space shuttles like the Challenger space shuttle. So what happened to the Challenger space shuttle? Engineers of the space shuttle knew about some faulty parts months before takeoff, but they did not want negative press to, so they pushed ahead with the launch anyway. And they launched it, and what happened? Because of the faulty parts, the Challenger space shuttle exploded in midair, okay, causing the deaths of the astronauts inside. Okay, so groupthink was behind the disaster. All right. So, how about groupthink on a military level? We will go back in history and consider the uh, the war, World War II, in particularly in China. So Nanking is a place in China which was occupied by the Japanese, and in late 1937, over a period of 6 weeks, Imperial Japanese Army forces who were occupying Nanking brutally murdered hundreds of thousands of people, including both soldiers and civilians. Okay, and this was referred to as the rape of Nanking because 20 to 80,000 women were sexually assaulted. So because all the Japanese soldiers were doing the same thing, no one bothered to dissent because of groupthink. Okay, so that is groupthink on a military level. So let's now consider groupthink on an international level. Let's take the case of the invasion of Iraq, which was led by a coalition headed by the United States. So the premise was that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, which led to the United States deciding to invade it together with other countries. Oh, so they decided based on an information which was proven to be false. There were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Okay, so this is an example of groupthink on an international level. All right. So, groupthink factors. What are the factors that lead to a group engaging in groupthink? So, let's consider them. All right. So, one of them is group identity. When there is strong group identity, members of the group tend to perceive their group as correct or superior, while expressing disdain or disapproval toward people outside the group. So, when the group identity is very strong, they tend to see themselves as always correct and morally right. So, that's a factor that leads to groupthink. Another factor is influential leader. Okay, so groupthink is also more likely to take place when a powerful and charismatic leader commands the group. So, this is the other factor that leads to groupthink. Low knowledge, which is another factor. When people lack personal knowledge of something or feel that other members of the group are more qualified, they are more likely to engage in groupthink. Why? Because they will depend on they're more knowledgeable members for the decision that they will make. And they will just believe them because they have no knowledge about the issue. Okay. And lastly, another factor that leads to groupthink is group cohesiveness. So, what is cohesion? It is indicated by the strength of the bonds that link members to the group as a whole. There is a sense of belongingness and community within the group, and this is group cohesion. The more cohesive the group is, the more likely it is for the group to engage in groupthink. Okay, so these are the factors that lead to groupthink. So, avoid being part of group decisions you may regret later on, because you might be part of a group and it's already engaging in groupthink, and you never know, you might already be committing a crime because no one dissented and everyone wanted the group to be unanimous. Okay. And as well as if you are an individual, you might want to avoid becoming victims of groups who might be succumbing to groupthink already. Okay. If you see a group of men who's drinking, whether inside or outside, yeah, try to avoid that, because you don't know how cohesive they are. They might have they might already be engaging in groupthink, and you might become the victim because they're already drunk. Their inhibitions are gone. Okay, another way to avoid becoming victims of groupthink: if you see a group of men or guys on the street and they're all huddled together, never know, they might be a very cohesive group and they have a leader who might say to them, oh, let's pick on this guy, and that guy happens to be you. So we have to avoid becoming victims of groupthink. Try to avoid groups which you might doubt. Okay. And lastly, of course, when you're walking down a dark street, you never know if a group is waiting there for their next victim. Okay. Might be criminals or groups that want to commit hate crimes and so on. Okay, so that ends my lecture on groupthink. If you want to be updated with my upcoming lectures, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Prof. Eric F. Thank you very much.